All right, we are back. Kevin's Corner. Sorry that we're a little bit later for you. The concussion protocol situation with Anthony Richardson, Ryan Kelly, just wanted to make sure that they were full participants in that Wednesday practice. And as we record this late on Thursday morning, my expectation is both will be in the lineup coming up this weekend against the Rams. I am Kevin Bowen. Eddie Garrison is with me across the way. We'll dive deep into Colts and Rams here on the pod. And then, Eddie, we had JuJu Brents on our morning show Monday. Always enjoyed JuJu's energy and obviously had a great NFL debut against the Ravens. So we'll throw that interview in on the pod coming up here right before a lot of Twitter questions.
A lot. A lot is the right word to use. I think we were over a dozen for this pod, which is more than we normally get. It's what happens when you're first in the AFC South, Kev.
Well, and especially more for a second pod of the week. You know, oftentimes in the offseason, we get a little deeper into the Twitter questions, but in season, there's a lot of storylines that have arisen, and so we'll get to those here coming up. Let's begin, though, with Richardson and Kelly. Obviously, those are the two big storylines, Eddie. And, again, the return of Richardson, there are a few people that reach out to me Sunday morning. They're like, gosh, do I really have to watch Minshew today? And it's not like the disdain of Minshew. It's more of the expectation of, man, I can't wait to watch Richardson and the development. And obviously he had shown early intrigue, and you don't necessarily want to watch the dude on a one-year contract who has, 24 starts, 25 starts, and is not going to be the franchise quarterback. So, things with Richardson, probably three, Eddie, stand out to me about Sunday. First, do we see any altering of his playing style? What do we see him do in the open field? Those sorts of things. I think that is a huge storyline, and because the reality is he's missed more quarters than he's played through the 12 quarters of his NFL career, missing 7, playing in 5 of them. 2, I would say from a throwing standpoint, Eddie, do we continue to see the, efficient underneath Anthony Richardson? I did not expect that, but that's what we saw in the first 5 quarters. It was, 65% guy. It was no attempts really down the field at all. Do we see a little bit more of the feast or famine with the passing game and a little bit more inconsistency, but also a little bit more ability for the big play through the air, the vertical 15, 20-yard challenges down the field, if not more. And then lastly, and I guess this kind of ties into number 1 for me, Eddie, but, we only saw Anthony Richardson and Zach Moss for 1 quarter in Houston. Deion Jackson next to him is a lot different than Zach Moss next to him. So, what does that run game look like? Because I do think that has some potential when you talk about it, but I am interested to see that. So, again, it's just beyond valuable that he's back to practice, and it theoretically should be back into game settings, and the reps are so precious, they're so valuable, and I think now it's, I don't know, maybe an energy boost. Obviously 2-1 gives you an energy boost, but I think seeing Richardson again gives you that boost. Anything on Richardson, Eddie, that you're looking forward to on Sunday?
I'm just looking forward to seeing him play again.
Yeah, period, right?
Yeah, we haven't seen much. Like you said, just 5 quarters.
And that's where the unknown creeps into it of the Colts are 2-1. Yeah, they're leading the division. And, I think there's reason for more optimism exiting Week 3 this year compared to Week 3 last year, even though you beat the Chiefs last year in Week 3. But then I'm like, oh, wait, they've got that rookie QB again. And there's just – it's just unknown. Not good, not bad. I'm not saying either of them. I think good based off what I've seen in the first 5 quarters, but still, it's a guy that just missed a decent amount of practice and playing time due to an injury. How does he react to all of that? Again, good news on the Ryan Kelly front. Twofold, Eddie. First off, it's just good news that this dude missed over a month back in 2017 due to a concussion. So the fact that this absence looks to be about 1 week. That is great news on that end. And then 2, anytime you get a player back, a center back who has been your center for nearly a decade, and you get him back in the week you play Aaron Donald, I would say that is
huge.
Also a good thing on that front there. Injury report looks good. It looks like you're going to face a backup left tackle for the 4th straight week. That is beautiful for the Colts. And Zach Moss isn't on the injury report. So, I'd say good news for Colts, bad news for Rams. I saw Stafford get beat up a lot, frankly, on Monday, particularly when they did suffer Alaric Jackson, I think is their left tackle.
Yep.
Once he exited, they were in scramble mode and they struggled to keep Stafford upright. And I guess let's just kind of bleed into the Rams here, Eddie. That to me is why I still sit here on Thursday morning. I'm surprised it's only 1 point as a favorite. I would lay some money on the Colts, frankly. I don't know if I'm at Texans level of confident, and we'll give our picks to round out the show, but I think basically how I look at this matchup is they have a Hall of Famer in Donald. They have a Hall of Fame type quarterback in Stafford. Neither of them, I would say, have produced Hall of Fame production this season. Donald's got, a sack and a half, I think it is, through 3 games.
And that just came last game.
And then Stafford has not really put up numbers at all. And again, I don't act like I'm ripping the two. They just don't have a lot of support around them. So all the focus, all the attention needs to go on. As long as those two don't have Hall of Fame type days, which they have had. Hell, they've had them against the Colts, frankly. They've certainly had them in their careers. I expect the Colts to win this game. I do. I think the Rams are at a massive disadvantage with the schedule, having the short week and having to fly back from Cincinnati to L.A. late on Monday, hell, more like early Tuesday, and then fly back here and 10 a.m. local time start back home for the Rams. And I mean, to me, they're a little bit more sum of their parts than they are individuals. So maybe I'm not giving those, the sum enough credit. But again, individually, I think if you make sure Donald and Stafford don't beat you, and with Stafford, it's just disrupting that timing. We know the timing's great. We know he loves the middle of the field, all of those things. Then I think the Colts should win this game. I am curious, just like, how do they handle a pretty unique week? And I say unique week in that, Eddie, for the first time in 60 weeks of football, you are in sole possession of the AFC South. And it's a shocking number. I was thinking about that driving into our show, I think Tuesday morning. I was getting ready to start the show, and I know how Mike Chappell's brain works. I know if he hadn't thought of that stat already, he would have thought of it, and he'd be looking it up. So I texted Chapp as I get ready to start the show. I go, off the top of my head, I'm guessing they haven't had sole possession in the AFC South since that 5-2 start in 2019 with Jacoby. And I don't know that for sure, Chapp, but have you thought about that yet? And he texts me later in the show. He goes, I would agree, but let me double check it. And he did. So thank you, Chap, for doing the double checking as I was doing the show. And it's been that long, Eddie.
The Dean
is on it. It's been that long. No 2022 season, no 2021, no 2020. You got to go back to the midway point of 2019, which you obviously look at that in 2 ways. One, it's embarrassing from a franchise standpoint. It's been 60 weeks since you've had sole possession of a division that no one would call a good division. And then the other side of it's great that you're now leading the division and you are 2-1 and you are in sole possession. Yeah, it's late September, but I mean, you've got 4 or 5 at home. And the one road game, Eddie, is Jacksonville. And Jacksonville will have just spent 2 weeks in London.
Yeah.
And they're coming back and playing. So you have a great opportunity now to see some things. And again, how do you react to, I don't want to call it a bullseye on the Colts' back, because again, in Vegas right now, I think Jacksonville's still the division favorite. I think Tennessee and Indy, Tennessee might even be second on that list. But like, just how do you react to a lot of people, singing your praises? And again, rightfully so. I think they deserve that with how they've played through these first 3 weeks. But how do you handle that? Because at some point as a franchise, you obviously want the bullseye squarely there, and you want to be able to react to that in a positive way. So I think that is something to look at as well. Anything Rams-wise, anything this week-wise you want to get to before we play that JuJu Brents interview and get to a lot of Twitter questions?
I just wanted to highlight the Rams injury report heading into Thursday morning. Ben Skoranek missed practice.
Notre Dame legend.
Correct. Tyler Higbee missed practice Wednesday. Both of those players with Achilles injuries.
Higbee's a big one.
Yes. Huge
Starting
one.
Tight end.
Yes. And then Puka Nacua, he was limited in practice Wednesday with an oblique injury. And Alaric Jackson missed practice Monday with a thigh injury he sustained in that Monday night game.
Puka's been the guy, obviously. I think he suffered that oblique injury in week 1, so I think that's more of a management thing.
Correct.
Certainly something to keep an eye on. The other name I will mention for the Rams, because he had an explosive play that easily could have been a touchdown.
Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, Monday night is Tutu Atwell. He's a guy that, honestly, in that jersey, I think of Tavon Austin a little bit, maybe because Tavon Austin torched the Colts back in that 2013 meeting here at Lucas Oil. But I think that is just one to keep an eye on a little bit of an explosive guy that can do some things. Let's give our picks to round out the show. And should we tee up Tutu? Should we tee up JuJu?
Yep.
Tutu and JuJu. JuJu Brents, this is with us on Monday morning. Here's the Colts rookie reacting to his NFL debut.
Been a fun show reacting with you this morning. Colts winners 22-19 in overtime in Baltimore. Obviously, we'll continue talking about that the rest of the morning and into tomorrow. Week 3 of the NFL season, concluding tonight. 2 games on Monday Night Football. Well, excited to bring on JuJu Brents. We talked a lot about him. Hey, let's get this man some playing time, and he came in and immediately made his voice heard. The big strip. We saw the nice play against Mark Andrews as well in the third quarter. In all, the Colts winners, and JuJu Brents a big part of that. JuJu, good morning. How are you, man? How's it going?
Great morning, man. I appreciate you having me on a little high right now still from last night, but it was a good win for us.
Well, I can imagine. What's the locker room and what's the plane ride home getting a big win like that? I imagine it's got to be fun.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely enjoyed that win. Tried to get some sleep last night, but it was a little tough. Just adrenaline still rushing after a game like that. But, the expectation for us to go down there was to win. So, it wasn't a fluke for us or anything like that. We had that mentality the whole way throughout the week, and it was great to end it that way.
JuJu, thanks for the time. Walk us through the strip and the recovery. I thought it was the play of the game, probably non-Matt Gay related. I mean, at that point, you guys were, certainly have been hit in the mouth a little bit with how Baltimore had started that game. What did you see when Kenyon Drake got past you? And then walk us through the fumble recovery.
Absolutely, yeah. That just strain, just effort, things you can't coach. But that is something that we work on consistently throughout the week, just raking at the ball, just being aggressive at the point of attack, just trying to do whatever we can to get the balls back in the hands of our offense. So just at that point, man, just seeing opportunity to going at the ball and, just making a play on it and just capitalizing.
What were the first 2 weeks of the season like for you, particularly Sundays when you weren't dressing here early in the year?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little tough for me just, being a competitor, want to being out there. But just knowing that it was something that's going to be temporary, and when my time did come, just making sure that I was fully ready. So just during those first weeks that I knew I wasn't going to be up, just still preparing like I was going to be out there, just having the same mentality, just knowing that time would come. And then just evidence of yesterday, just making sure when my number got called, I was fully ready to go out there and perform and not let my teammates, my coaches, anybody in this organization down.
Again, JuJu Brents with a second-round pick out of Warren Central High School. Not often we mention the high school before the colleges, but you got to with the local product. Was it, I guess, conversations with either Ron Milas, your DB coach, or even Gus Bradley? What were those conversations like, and what was maybe holding you back from playing in week 1 or week 2?
I had some preseason and just off-season little knick-knack injuries here and there that were just kind of hindering me. So just making sure that I was fully ready. So definitely getting those injuries all the way together and then just getting caught up to speed. The main thing, the difference is with the NFL is just the mental aspect of, just picking up on things fast and split-second decisions. So just making sure that I was fully ready. And then once, Coach gave me the green light, just go out there and perform, just let it all loose. And then at that point, they just told me to go out there and have fun, man. End of the day, football is football, so just go out there and just let it loose.
JuJu Brents with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline on the Fan Reaction Monday. The Colts get the win. We'll eventually switch to the Rams, but right now, as you said, it's basking, still having that high from yesterday in the big win. Matt Gay, after the game, was very humble. Was he humble in the locker room? He was one of the players of the game. I want a cocky kicker, but he was a humble kicker. Was he humble in the locker room?
Definitely, man. Cool, calm, collected, man. Hey, shout out to Matt Gay. That was insane. Just great dude and even better player, man. So just very excited for him and just the team, man, to continue to keep building off of this point.
Were you
like that.
Yeah, were you watching? How closely were you watching when Justin Tucker has the 61-yard field goal and it was short, but it was just short, and it was right. It was straight as an arrow. You were watching that. What were you thinking in those seconds where it looked like that was going to go through?
I couldn't lie to you. I couldn't watch it. I was just waiting on the reaction for the fans. So. It was kind of down. It's like, all right, once I see that he missed a lot, we got a shot at this. I was like, we go win this game. So I'm glad it turned out in our favor.
It's the NFL debut for JuJu Brents yesterday. 4 tackles, a forced fumble. Again, we talked about the fumble recovery. Man, I thought you laid the wood with those tackles, too. Is that something that you've kind of always been known for as a pretty physical corner? You know, sometimes at that position, you get guys a little timid. Certainly not an attribute of yourself.
Absolutely. You know, I like to make sure guys feel me, you know, especially on the outside. Just feel my presence, letting me know. One of my coaches in college and high school, it's crazy. Both of them say, man, just run through the smoke. And I'm definitely a guy where I do. I mean, I know it's going to be another side of it, man, but just being aggressive at the point of attack. So definitely in the pass game, being aggressive, but also in the run game, I definitely make sure I want to let my presence be felt in that aspect of my game as well.
Run through the smoke, Andy. I might make that sign for Max Bowen and have him slap that on the way out of the nursery every morning. JuJu, when did you get word that you'd be playing such a significant role yesterday?
Yeah, it was kind of put in the air earlier on throughout the week. It wasn't set in stone. So, like I said, like the previous weeks, I was still preparing the same way, and this week I attacked it the same way. And kind of just hearing a little bit here and there that I may be up. So just make sure that I was going to be ready, like I said earlier. But, man, I'm just, appreciate my coaches just trusting me to go out there and perform. And, man, it's a great game.
It seems as if you guys have fully bought in to Coach Steichen. And, you saw him. He was pumped up after the win and everything else. We get a more calculated in the media. By the time he gets to the press conferences, he's a lot more calculated. What kind of locker room guy is he? I assume you guys have fully bought in. What is it? What sorts of things? What kind of culture has he brought in just a few weeks on the job?
It's been great, man. He's just high energy. I would say Miami is consistent. He's a competitor, too. I love the way he competes, his mentality, man. Kind of mess with the opposing teams, taking some timeouts away from him. Like, that's love to see that. But, man, yeah, definitely just the way he attacks every day, just puts him in the right mind frame. Just by having an aggressive week, man, it makes the game a lot easier. So, just being real intentional with the work we put in on the field during practice, and then just going to let it all loose on Sundays.
JuJu, I know we had you on in camp, so I apologize if I asked this to you back a little over a month ago. Is there any significance to number 29?
None in particular. It was kind of one of those that was just available to me.
Because you were a big Bob Sanders guy growing up, right?
Yeah, that would have been dope if I would have got that. But hey, not too late. We'll see. Maybe eventually end up happening.
Who is the veteran? Obviously not a ton of vets in your room, but who's the veteran you point to? Maybe it's someone not even in your room that you would point to as who you've learned the most from so far in your NFL career.
We actually do have a lot of vets who I could say I have learned from, just little pieces. Quentin Nelson on the opposite side of the ball. Just the way he takes care of his body throughout the week. He's a guy I piggyback off of. No, definitely just like mentality, like defensive scheme wise, and just the small little details within the game. Kenny Moore and like Julian Blackman, those guys for sure. Even like Tony Brown. We got a lot of guys who are in our back end who have some experience, and we are young, but like those 3 guys for sure, I piggyback off of them a lot. Just keys within the game, things they may be seeing that I could learn and apply to my game as well. And, man, I know they say we young, man. We got some ballers in our room for sure.
Is Tony Brown the loudest guy in your locker room?
100%. 100%. You guys, anybody on the team, I think they all would attest to that answer for sure.
I was going to ask who's second on that list. If Tony Brown's easily first, who's second? Are you second?
I don't think second really matters. Like, it's no getting close to TB.
Understandable. JuJu Brents with us here, hanging out with you on the Fan. He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. Before we get you out of here, listen, I love this. We had some fun with it. Here on the radio, we have to give predictions, and all 10 radio gas bags, Juju, we all picked Baltimore to win the game, and Mo Alley Cox made fun of us and retweeted us Sunday night. So I don't know if there's a question there, but just know that Mo Alley Cox got his revenge on all of us here on Sunday.
I wish I would have seen the tweet. I would have gave y'all a little quote as well. But it's all good.
Yeah, especially with a local guy. That's not going to go over too well. Yeah. Juju, again, a hell of a debut, man. I go back to the play you made against Kenyon Drake and thinking that thing could have been what really turned it around and created such a competitive game, and obviously a tremendous finish for you guys. So congrats on that. Enjoy the home opener, I guess home debut, I should say, for you coming up on Sunday, and we'll hopefully chat with you down the road.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, that was JuJu Brents. Thank you to him. Enjoyed. We talked to him in training camp, Eddie, and at that point, obviously, he had only practiced for a handful of days, and you could see his energy is pretty high. And I also felt like I saw that on the field Sunday. He brought some physicality, man, that really stood out to me. Run through the smoke, is that what he says?
Yeah.
And you got to love that phrase. So, fully expect JuJu, of course, to be in that number 3 cornerback role, and he's got an opportunity here to really entrench himself.
Yeah, I felt like he played a little bit like his favorite player growing up in that game.
Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Right. Certainly looks different, though, from a height standpoint there.
And physique,
Yeah, you don't see that from corners oftentimes, but I thought JuJu brought that in his NFL debut.
Ready for Twitter questions?
Let's do it.
I have about 15 or 16, depending on time here. Randall is up first. I was wrong on a couple different things, he admits, about what to say about this Colts team and the way it was built. But it happens. The Colts have been a pleasant surprise for me this season, and while I still think there will be ups and downs, I think we're much further along in all phases of this retool than anyone initially thought. What were you wrong about, both Kevin and Eddie, regarding this roster going into the season? What was something you were right about or something that you're happy with? Thanks for keeping the fan base level, Kev. You're just awesome. Sorry about your Fighting Irish. Go Colts.
Thank you, Randall, for that. I'm not over the Notre Dame loss. I will never be over the Notre Dame loss, but I appreciate that. It's because I'm a psychotic fan that should probably seek out help. Duke, Saturday night, Eddie. I'm nervous. Defensive line is dominant, I would say, is probably what stands out to me. Like this much playmaking.
Yes.
That is probably the one. I always think this D-line has set a great tone in the run game, but it's the taking away of the ball. It's the timely sack. Fourth quarter plays. And you know what? You know who needs a hat tip for Sunday is Gus Bradley as well. Ramping up that blitzing. You think back to the Monday night game against Lamar a couple of years ago. I just thought Eberflus was way too content. We're going to do what we do. And it came back to bite you as Lamar settled into that just absurd rhythm that he was in back in 2021 against the Colts. I feel like with Gus ramping up the pressure, that was great. I'd say the secondary's been solid. I would say that's the thing. D-line really. Offensive line I think has been at a much more of a competent to better level, and that certainly plays into it. But I'd say D-line as dominant for me.
I would say that the sack production is what I was wrong about. I didn't expect the level of production they've got. They're second right now, Kev, or tied for second in the NFL in sacks with 12.
Yeah. That's a big number. And again, a couple strips within that as well. Set up some short fields, and it's needed because your offense, I just don't think, is in a position to do much heavy lifting right now. So that for sure.
And then something I was right about was I thought like the offensive line would bounce back coming into the year. So I just thought the way Bernard Ryman had improved from week 1 last year to the end of the season, I just felt like that line overall got better and it would carry over to the start of this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Ryman's a guy that I was high on coming into the year, and he certainly has been very solid through the first 3 weeks.
Somebody we haven't talked about, which is always a good thing if you're not talking about a left tackle.
Amen.
Austin says it seems like the Colts are playing with more intensity. The defense seems like it's just flying all over the field. Is this coaching or just guys having more confidence in the team? Last year seems like a lot of juice was lost.
Yeah, I think that last sentence makes a lot of sense. Last year seems like a lot of juice was lost.
Yeah.
I think inevitably you would have renewed energy. Like that was always going to be there. I think Shane Steichen brings some of that as well. I mean, last year was beyond deflating and all those things. And guys I thought were very honest in the spring and talking about that. I mean, the O-line has really talked very much about camaraderie and off the field stuff, and I mean, it really sounds almost like, junior high-ish in the close-knit group. We all grew up together, like things like that. So that is something that I would say has stood out. But certainly, I would say renewed energy, and part of it is September football. Once adversity starts to hit, how do you react to that? But after how 2021 ended, how 2022 went, I think, again, inevitably you're going to have that, but I think Shane Steichen has brought some of that as well. And, of course, defensively, especially, it's just year 2 of the Bradley system. So, typically, I think all systems look a little smoother then.
Brian, with the win, do they hold out Anthony Richardson for one more week? Kind of looks like they slow played the concussion this past week, but just my opinion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't. I think slow playing a concussion. I don't. I mean, if you're good to clear certain steps, I think you go out there and do that. So no, I expect him to be out there on Sunday, and once you get to Friday, maybe look at it and say, is it worth putting him out there? At that point, Gardner's going to play. You want Gardner to get the reps, so maybe on Friday or something like that. But no, I think with the concussion, it's pretty straightforward on what steps you can take, how you pass them, and what your practice time looks like.
It kind of looks like Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard have shown with Deion Jackson and Darrell Baker Jr. that they won't tolerate mistakes. This is from C. Daily. Do you expect Isaiah McKenzie to lose the punt returner job, or is this one of those cases where winning heals all wounds and he gets a shot to correct it?
Yeah, I don't think it heals all wounds. I mean, you obviously beat Houston by how many scores, and you still bench Darrell Baker. I think falling into traps of we won, don't correct anything. We lost, correct everything. I don't think that's the right method to go about things. Now, part of me with Isaiah McKenzie says, Eddie, if he's not doing punt returns, why is he on your team? He's barely playing on offense. I thought he'd play a little bit more. Maybe he will get into some gadgety stuff. And then with Josh Downs, it's one of those things where, like, is he playing too much on offense to want him to do punt returns? Now, again, punt returns to me, it's like, you trot back there, 5 times a game, and you fair catch it 2 or 3 of them? I don't think it's super taxing. I mean, would Dallas Flowers be back there? Would you want him back there after just playing, a 6-play defensive series? So I think it's a question that I'll throw to Shane Steichen tomorrow. I think it's a fair question to ask. I think Stephen Holden maybe had that he talked with McKenzie in the locker room afterwards and said that it was more of a wobbling issue. The ball was wobbling, and it didn't want to field it and risk a fumble. Yeah, I don't know. I think you got to step up there and catch it, knowing that 10, 15 yards in that situation could be the difference in the game. And really, you could make the argument that it was. I mean, if Zay Flowers does not fair catch it himself on the onside kickoff, the Colts probably lose that game, and I point straight to that McKenzie Minshew safety as probably the reason why.
Yeah, and I think it's also worth noting, too, that McKenzie had a couple poor decisions in preseason, too, when it comes to returning.
Good point. It's a good point. And I thought in the preseason there could have been an element of, you want to test out your blockers, so you want to field everything, but certainly that was a big one.
Vlopa. At the beginning of the season, the national press said Indianapolis had little talent in the roster. No surprise there, but that the local press supported that idea caught my attention. Just over a year ago, the Colts had 7 Pro Bowlers and still on the team, not 2 or 3, but all 7. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I would say the argument is more of the impactful spots on a football team. I'm trying to think of these 7 Pro Bowlers you had.
Nelson, Kelly, Taylor,
Kelly,
Moore,
Leonard, Buckner, Luke Rhodes, probably, right?
Rigoberto?
No, I don't think he was ever a Pro Bowler. But obviously, if you look at those 7, JT's not playing. Luke Rhodes is a long snapper. Kelly, I would argue, you could argue what? 3 of the other 5 had dips in their play, right? Kenny Moore for sure. Shaquille Leonard, probably more health-related than anything. And then you could make the argument Kelly or Nelson. I would say Buckner is probably the only one still playing at a Pro Bowl level. Or I should say last year was still playing at a Pro Bowl level. Some of these guys early on have gotten back to that. So I think the question going from 2021 through 2022 back to 23 is, Eddie, I feel like in NFL careers, it's rare to see kind of dips 7, 8 years, more like 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 years into a career, and then a resurgence again. Like once you dip, it's hard to get back there. But maybe we are seeing that with a Nelson. Maybe we're seeing that with a Kenny Moore here. So, again, I would say that is the question a little bit more. But I think there's no arguing. Your elite talent last year, and this is something Chris Ballard said in the end of season presser, and I agreed with. Chris said something to the effect of, we need our best players to play better. Like your highest paid guys last year did not play up to their standard. And I'm not just talking Matt Ryan. I think Leonard falls into that category. I think Kenny Moore falls into that category. I think your offensive lineman fell into that category as well. And right now, I think you're getting some better return on investment. Not from all of them, but from the majority of them.
Clayton, one thing I've been super impressed with this year is the defense. It seems that Gus Bradley continues to adapt and evolve his defense. Do you think that this is pushed by a more aggressive head coach or the result of a second year in the system?
Yeah, second year, you certainly, again, play a little bit faster. Boy, you want to talk about a hell of a play on Sunday, man. How about Franklin making that play in the open field
against Lamar?
On Lamar. I mean, if you go back and watch that, it's not like Zaire was spying Lamar on that play. I mean, he had duties like to Lamar's right. Lamar scrambles to his left. And Zaire, puts the feet in the ground, has to make a big-time turn and then, ramp it back up. It's not like he was running in full stride the whole time. And that was a huge stop because I think of the next plays when Speed made that big tackle and you got off the field there. That was a huge part of that game. So I think that stands out. I also think the defense has been – I know Grover and DeForest have had a couple of rest days in practice, but Eddie, your front, hell, even your back end, your defense has been really healthy.
Yeah.
Am I missing somebody? Has a starter missed a game yet?
No.
And we're now 4 games into it. I don't think anybody, DeForest missed the first day of practice this week. I expect him to play, but, unless I'm missing somebody, I don't think anybody's missed a game.
I don't think so.
So that obviously is a huge, huge help. I think last year you battled a little bit of injuries, had some guys play through stuff. Quiddy missed a handful. Kenny missed a little bit of time as well. Obviously Shaq was dealing with his situation, so that's huge.
Flipping. One more week until the Jonathan Taylor drama starts again.
Oh, boy.
As I'm wearing his jersey today.
Start drinking now?
Yes. I'm surprised you haven't stopped from that Notre Dame game yet.
Oh, boy.
But he says, first, kudos to the team blocking it out. But what do you think most likely happens with Jonathan Taylor? Second, Shaq Leonard looks really slow right now. Is he healthy?
Yeah, did we have it? I thought we had maybe another Leonard question. I might save the Leonard thoughts for a little bit down the road. But on Taylor, to be totally honest with you, it remains a bit up in the air. I don't have confidence one way or the other what's going to happen. I tend to think he's got to play at some point. Like, what else is he going to be able to do? You can have some crazy holdout stand. I don't know. So I don't have a great answer for you because, Eddie, I think the other thing is, when he does make his practice debut, whether that's next Wednesday, whether it's, another week, by that point, he'll have missed 50 some straight practices. If you add up all the ones to start this year, you add up all the training camp practices, you add up all the spring sessions, you go back to the 4 or 3 weeks he missed to end last season. You're going to get to 50 some practices. We watched Zach Moss miss a month, and then he needed 2 weeks to get back to work.
Yeah.
And that's with an upper body injury. Taylor's a lower body injury. We can debate how hurt Taylor is. The dude still had surgery in the past year. So now he plays a position where you don't need a lot of reps, you can rotate there. It's not like Taylor needs to come out and carry it 20 times in his first game. He can carry it 8 or 10. So that's the good news. But I'm just more curious about how much practice time does he feel like he needs? Because if there's one thing about Taylor we saw last year, he is super protective of his body and how he feels. And can you imagine him risking it and getting hurt?
In a contract year?
Right? Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. You don't talk about some more smoke with that. So, yeah, I don't have a great answer, but We'll see.
Here is the Shaq Leonard. It is from Hank. Is it just me, or is Shaq Leonard not the defensive machine he used to be? Do you know if he has any lingering pain that is limiting him right now? Let me know your thoughts. Love the pod.
Yeah, I don't think, Hank, there is the lingering pain. I'll say this about Leonard. He certainly has not looked like a liability to me like he did last year, but he's not sniffing around the ball like his normal self. And I feel like he's being taken off the field on third downs a little bit more. Again, I know the Colts have said that, it just happens to be when his pitch count occurs, but I'm starting to see it a little bit more. And, I mean, Eddie, the Leonard we've seen through the first 3 games, you're going to have an honest discussion about his contract at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You are. Just period. You are. If you're going to hold a stance against Taylor, then you need to do the same thing with Leonard. And honestly, Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed should probably be saying, hey, can we get some of that money?
Right.
Seriously. But, of course, you fall into this boat too, Eddie. Who's Shaquille Leonard's agent?
Malky Kawa.
Malky Kawa. Can you imagine that conversation? Hey, Malky, it's Chris. We'd like to restructure. I mean, yeah, about that.
Well, sorry. He's not on the team anymore.
Can't wait for that.
We'll just buy him out.
Can't wait for that combo.
Benji, if Jonathan Taylor comes back week 5 and gets hurt, what are the chances we see an Earl Thomas-like bird flipping to the Colts organization?
Remind me again with what Earl... Did Earl flick off the flick? I don't know. I feel like I've called it both. They do like his sideline, or is that another sideline? What was that again?
I don't know fully in the direction of where it went, but I believe it's when he ruptured his Achilles with the Seahawks.
That's what it was.
After the whole contract year.
Carted off, right?
Yeah, got carted off and gave the bird.
Yeah. Wow, that would be quite the scene there. Yeah, again, where Taylor's venom is at, I can't wait to see.
Yeah.
Part of me says I don't want to see it because
I can't wait to hear him talk.
This conversation's just stressed me out so much, but finally we're going to get something. I don't know if it's next week, but we should get it somewhat soon. Daniel
says the homer in him is back. We fought and pulled out a tough win on the road and got a bit unfortunate. We're 2-1, and as I look down the schedule and knowing we should get Anthony Richardson and some other guys back and Jonathan Taylor probably at some points, am I crazy to think we have a decent chance at winning the division? Tennessee looks terrible. Jacksonville and Houston both look mediocre at best. What do you think? Also glad to see that Leonard is healthy, but with the way Speed and Franklin have been playing, unless he renegotiates his contract this offseason, he will get cut. Given the team's success in finding quality linebackers, there's zero chance that he stays next year under his existing contract. Thoughts?
Is there anything more AFC South than the division looks terrible in September comment?
No. That's how you know it's approaching midseason, KB.
Yeah, decent chance at winning the division. I remember the start of the year, Eddie. It was like you are a Trevor Lawrence torn ACL away from saying this division's wide open.
Yep.
And obviously that has not occurred.
And right now you didn't need the Trevor Lawrence torn ACL or major injury.
I still think we're a little premature on giving this strong stance on Jacksonville. Let's play out Jacksonville's season. They do win in Indy week 1. Week 2, they don't look great against Kansas City. To be fair, it's still Kansas City. Week 3, obviously, they play very poorly against Houston, and they get rolled at home. Cam Robinson's back, next week? Is that right? He was 4 games, I believe. How do they look there? They've got these 2 in a row in London. Obviously, it's great that the Colts get them off of that double London back-to-back. That's huge that we talked about earlier. So, I would think that based off what I've seen so far, I do think the Colts should be in the mix. It's just, is Jacksonville going to be 10 or 11 or not? Are they? Are they not? Could the Colts get there? Again, it's still a little premature maybe for me to go all the way there yet. The season is so long. The Colts still, again, we've seen Minshew for 7 quarters. We've seen Richardson for 5. I mean, how does Richardson look after 4 straight starts?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. What happens when the injury bug starts to hit the Colts a little bit more? Again, the O-line and D-line have been incredibly healthy through the first 4 weeks. Other teams, Jacksonville, certainly from a Cam Robinson standpoint, they don't say the same thing with that. So, I mean, I think those are just kind of inevitable questions you will get to. And that's the beauty and the beast of an NFL season, Eddie. I mean, how many times do you point to a team starting? I mean, look at the Colts. They started 1-5 in 2018, and they ended up being a super hot team that won a road playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
They started 5-2 in 2019. NFL Network, Peter Schrager saying Jacoby Brissett should be receiving MVP votes.
And it went all downhill from there.
And they lose 7 of 9. So, again, it is September, but I think early on through these first 12 quarters, I'll echo what I said on Monday, you should feel more encouraged exiting week 3 this year than you did last year. Jacksonville remains that unknown. I don't look at Tennessee or Houston, though, and think they are serious threats to this, and I feel pretty confident about saying that. Jacksonville, to me, is just still a bit of an unknown.
5 of the next 8 games are home. Two of those 3 are actual road games. One of them, the neutral site game in Germany. So this is a very pivotal part of the season coming up here.
Well, again, Eddie, goes back to, part of the reason why I said 7 wins for the Colts at the start of the year is the schedule. I mean, quarterback-wise. I mean, Stafford is like, 2 or 3 on the list of who you're going to play? And they can't keep him upright. I mean, Derek Carr, is he going to play when the Colts see him or not? Derek Carr would be a top 5 quarterback that you play this year. So all of that certainly aids the Colts. But again, credit to the Colts because through 12 quarters, I think their own individual play has been better than what I thought.
XFL and USFL have officially announced the intent to merge leagues. More details will be coming out. But major move for spring football.
That is juicy there.
We've got 4 questions
Ryder Cup
left.
pairings are out. I cannot wait for the Ryder Cup.
Oh, darn.
I just reset the alarm for 4:30 for tomorrow.
It just took us, almost 50 minutes to get Ryder Cup in here finally?
We're almost done. Come on.
Got 4 questions left. Drew, do we want the Colts to keep winning the AFC South with it being wide open? I'm having a hard time figuring out what I want to happen this season. Yes, I would love to win, but I wouldn't want to miss out on a potential blue chip player in the draft.
Obviously, this is a popular storyline right now, Eddie, and I've long said that the biggest development of this season is Anthony Richardson. And
we've got a question about that too, by the way.
Okay. I kind of look at this, Eddie. How many games did the Jets win last year?
Ooh, good question.
Jets won 7 games last year.
I was going to say 8. I couldn't remember. If
you were there at 7-4 starting December and then tailspin, if you were a Colts fan at the start of the year and I handed you 7 wins, you would have called that a successful season, correct?
Yeah, if you bet the over, yeah. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, very successful on multiple levels. What would you call the Jets quarterback situation right now?
An atrocity.
And they won 7 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
So the win-loss total of it all is just not the end-all, be-all. You would sacrifice some wins if all of a sudden you were a Jets fan and you said, man, Zach Wilson, I really feel like there's something here, and he's going to be our guy, and there's hope, and we don't need to go out and get Aaron Rodgers, and we've got major development at that quarterback position, and he's the best guy in that draft class. Obviously, the Jets fans are not saying that at all. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Colts of, sure, you want to sprinkle in some winning, and I fully understand. Colts fans have had to deal with just embarrassing football for a year plus, and you want to create a culture of winning and all of that. But to me, the quarterback just supersedes it. So getting Richardson in winning moments or game-like moments, that to me is what I want to see again. And I guess Sunday, could be the restart of that, if you will. Because, right now, Eddie, this is what we have to go off of. Anthony Richardson has played 5 quarters. Obviously, 2 of those are in the second halves. And in that second half in Jacksonville, it wasn't great. And so I want to see him back in those moments of like, okay, how does he handle that? Is his playing time altered at all? One possession games, overtime. I mean, can you imagine if he would have walked out there with 2:30 to go on Sunday in Baltimore and he's backed up against his own goal line and Baltimore fans are going nuts and he's got to react to that. He's got to get the offense out of the shadow, and Isaiah McKenzie just put him in a horrible situation. That is golden stuff for what you want out of his development, and you didn't get that last week. So that's what I think you want to get to more than anything. Obviously, I totally get it. I'm a fan, too, of like you want to see winning moments from your respective teams when they've lost the most. I just think there's other items to this season that matter a little bit more than that. Again, individually. I mean, we just talked about Ryman earlier, Eddie. I mean, if you get to the end of the year and Bernhard Raimann has been the guy, like, did Bernhard Raimann starting against Denver or starting against whoever last year when you were losing games, did that hurt your football team in the win-loss? Probably. Now, granted, the other left tackles that they threw in there weren't great, but there were probably better short-term options last season at left tackle than Bernhard Raimann early on. But you know what? If that development all of a sudden means he's your guy at left tackle for 8 years, I think you can live with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at with all of this. And again, I know it's a push and pull, and I know it's not the easiest thing in the world, but that's where I'm at with this.
JJ's question follows that thinking that you just summarized there, that you and everyone that he's heard on 107.5 The Fan, whether that's on the live radio, YouTube, whatever, podcasting.
Our app?
Yes, that too.
Free app?
Have said that this year is only or mostly about developing Anthony Richardson. Who decided this? Was it the team? Well, it makes sense in a quarterback-centric league. Another approach might be to develop Anthony Richardson and hope he's good, but make the defense so tough that a weaker offense wouldn't necessarily be a killer. If Anthony Richardson ends up being injury-prone, hopefully not, that gives Chris Ballard another 3 years of excuses into the future. Perhaps it would be prudent to not put all the eggs in one basket.
Well, JJ, the old who decided it, I guess, I don't know. I decided it. I don't want to sound like I'm like, staying on top of the table here, but yeah,
You are the Almighty.
This is my thought on it. Obviously, the Colts.
You heard of Bruce Almighty. It's Kevin Almighty now.
Yeah, obviously the Colts have much bigger things. Chris Ballard's thinking, boy, it'd be great to win to help out my resume, and Shane Steichen's going to feel the same way. So I just think it's a part of young rookie development, period. I mean, I'd say the same thing for C.J. Stroud and Houston and Bryce Young in Carolina and even some of these second-year, third-year quarterbacks, etc. So that is where I'm at. But again, I mean, you have other areas of the team, Eddie. I think you pointed this out really well a couple of pods ago of like, there are other areas to this football team we can still evaluate, and you obviously want to see them do well. I mean, Kwity Paye, nice start to the season. That is huge for his development. A contract year for Kenny Moore, a contract year for Grover Stewart. Shaquille Leonard kind of in a pseudo contract year. There are other individuals and positions that don't necessarily apply to Richardson, and you can evaluate them with different color glasses than you can evaluate Richardson. I think that's just all part of how this puzzle is a little bit jumbled here. You've got guys on different timelines in this puzzle. It's not like a full-on rebuild. I mean, how about Michael Pittman early in the year, Eddie? I mean, a pretty good start to a contract year. Only player in the NFL with at least 8 catches in every game this year. I mean, I don't know if I said this on Monday, but I can't believe the Pittman stat. He's at 8 for 50, at least in these first 3 games. I think 8 for 90 in a couple of them, 8 for 70, something like that. So a Colts wideout that it's had at least 8 catches and at least 50 receiving yards in 3 straight games. Last time that's happened?
Reggie Wayne?
T.Y. Hilton never did it. Reggie Wayne. We got to go back to 2011 into 2012.
That was a great guess by me.
Beautiful. Reggie did it 4 times, Eddie. Marvin Harrison did it 4. T.Y. never did it. Now, when I think deeper about T.Y., I'm like, well, you know what? T.Y. was kind of a 6 for 120 type guy. He was probably more of a big play guy.
Yeah.
Really, than even Reggie, and then, certainly Pittman as well. And again, I'm not saying that stat all of a sudden means Michael Pittman he deserves $25 million a year, but it is one of these things where, boy, man, I think, and I've always liked Pittman. I think there's something there with him, and again, he's an individual, Eddie, that yes, he is playing with Richardson, but you can evaluate him a little bit more in a contract year, and you have to do that. And what does that look like at the end of the year for him? That'll be something that's obviously huge. So, I don't want to act like the Richardson story is the only thing to pay attention to. I think it's the most important thing to pay attention to, but there are plenty of other things to watch for individually, team-wise. And I totally hear people out there that say, no, winning and creating that culture is absolutely huge. That's big, but again, to me, and I don't know if the Jets analogy is the perfect one, but the Jets were 7-4 starting December last year. You talk about a golden position, but yet now look at them. And that's the trap. Obviously, it's the worst trap in the world to fall into, but that's something that I don't think you want to go down.
Mitch, is Alec Pierce an asset or a liability? Keep up the good work. Love the pod.
Yeah, boy, asset and liability are certainly at two far ends of the spectrum. Eddie, he's a one-trick pony, and the one trick has not been tried very much. The one trick, what? He's got one deep ball attempt this season?
Yeah.
Did he have two
he dropped
in Baltimore? Did he have one? Yeah. And again, I thought that was a pretty good play by that Baltimore DB. Certainly, Alec, you'd like for him to come down with that, but he's a one-trick pony that doesn't impact the game enough elsewhere. Some of the quarterback play, possibly, but you need more from him. Right now, Eddie, I remember the discussion we had before the season started. Who's going to be second on this team in catches? I think we pretty easily said Josh Downs. Mm-hmm. And that's clearly playing out right now. And I'll throw this one out there as well, Eddie. I was crunching some numbers on tight ends because Jelani Woods eligible to return from IR next week. And let's play this out in our heads, all right?
Okay.
If Woods returns, right now you've had a healthy scratch at tight end every week. Mallory week 1, Ogletree week 2, Mallory week 3.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if you bring Woods back, doesn't that mean another person is out at tight end?
Mm-hmm.
What's Mo Alley-Cox? What is his future with this team?
I don't know.
Eddie, in the last 16 games of Mo Alley-Cox's career, so we go back a year, last 16, 8 of those 16 games, 0 catches. He's got 10 catches total in those 16 games. He's averaging 31 snaps per game. I think Mo brings an element to the blocking game that should be acknowledged, but if you're a little bit more thinking receiving mold, does he continue to have a consistent role? Because he's continued to have a consistent role over the past year. But the role has not involved him as a receiver really at all. So I just think that is something to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. 2 questions left. Do you have time for both?
Okay.
With how Zach Moss has played since coming to Indianapolis, if you, Kevin, were the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, would you rather extend Jonathan Taylor to the top-tier contract that he's asking for and roll with the current wide receiver room, or sign a good number 2 wide receiver such as T. Higgins to number 1 money this offseason, a la the Jags signing Christian Kirk, and roll with Zach Moss as your running back? This is assuming the Colts aren't drafting high enough to get the top 2 wide receivers in this year's draft. Love the pod.
Okay, give that to me one more time. Sorry, Eddie. Zach Moss.
So would you rather extend Jonathan Taylor to the top-tier contract that he's asking for, enroll with the current wide receivers on the roster, or you keep Zach Moss as your starting running back?
Got it.
And you sign T. Higgins or someone of a number 2 quality in terms of a wide receiver to number 1 money, like the Jags did with Christian Kirk.
Okay. To play out the hypothetical, I would rather invest at wideout, but I want to make sure. And who asked that? Who was it? Mitch? Nate.
This was on YouTube.
Nate. Thank you, Nate. Thank you to our YouTubers out there. Always a passionate group. Appreciate you guys tuning in. There's a misconception that it's an either-or situation. It's not an either-or. You have enough money to do both. And that's kind of where I've always been at, of the, what else are you spending this money on? Like, to me, it's, you're not paying Ryman soon. You're not paying Pay soon. You're not paying Richardson soon. You can front load the hell out of some of these deals. Hell, you want to slap the franchise tag for the first time in a decade? Feel free to use that. If you would like to, if you need to make it work. Again, I think extension-wise, you could still make it work with some front-loaded action here. But yeah, if you are going to make me pick, I'm certainly team wide out over running back. And again, I know that's where it gets into, well, it's both sides of your mouth when you're talking about drafting a running back. Again, I'm long been a believer you don't take one in the first 3 rounds. But then when you draft a quarterback like Richardson, who's unlike anything the NFL world has seen, you support. And when you think you have enough support, you continue to support.
Nick's the final person with the Twitter question. He loves the hot start to the year with a big win over the Baltimore Ravens, but are we jumping the gun a little bit on this Colts team? We had a big win at the start of the year against Kansas City last year, and look what happened. Just don't want to get my hopes up. Appreciate you guys and a big fan of the pod.
Again, I think we've kind of talked about this. Thank you, Nick, for that question. I think there's reason to have more optimism exiting week 3 this year than you did last year. You were shut out in Jacksonville, embarrassing fashion. You struggled mightily with Houston, and were fortunate to be in the tie. You played a lot better. This year, obviously, you beat Houston by 2 scores on the road, and then Jacksonville, you had chances in the fourth quarter to potentially win that game. I think we also can acknowledge, Eddie, it's week 3 of an NFL season. And there's so much time left. And like the Colts are 2-1. I mean, they were 1 play away in Baltimore from being 1-2. So I think we also can acknowledge that. And then you can sit there and you look at the schedule and 4 or 5 at home and look at the quarterbacks on the schedule. So I say this, reason for optimism, but I don't think, at least from my point of view, I'm not going to make some grand proclamation change on what I originally thought at the start of the season. I could be wrong on that. Maybe they will win 10 or 11, but I'll kind of stick to the 7 that I said. I do think they've played better at the start of the year. But again, it's a long, long season, man, and the injury bug's been pretty good to the Colts here through the first 4 weeks. Does that change at all? I mean, those are questions you have. Again, what does Richardson continue to look like? It's fascinating. That's why you love it. But through first 3 weeks, optimism about Shane Steichen, optimism about the defense, optimism about Richardson, the offensive line playing a little bit better. Those things, all of them check out. And if you're a Colts fan, understandably, you should be pleased with that. Eddie Garrison, I'm going Colts 24. I'm going Rams 13.
Wow. Good defensive effort for the horse.
Good defensive effort.
So the line in this one is still 1.5. So you're smashing it big time, huh?
You?
I will go Colts 24, like yourself, and I will probably go Rams 22.
Wow. How do you get to 22?
We'll find out.
I guess the Colts did that last week, right?
Yeah.
5 Brett Maher field goals. Maher, whatever his name is. Is this the dude that missed all the kicks in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Gosh, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That was, oh, man. I was shaking for him.
I forget.
He made it in San Francisco, right? Didn't he make it?
I can't remember.
They stuck with him and he made it?
Yeah, and then there was somebody picked him up and then let him go in preseason, and then
he found a spot with the Rams?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. All right, we'll be back next week, Monday. We'll recap the Rams. Certainly the chaos of Jonathan Taylor will take center stage, at least for a little bit, until we see the latest update on that. He's Eddie Garrison. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday.